In this episode, I was joined by TB125, who is one of the OG Metaventures Network Moguls in the Upland Metaverse community. TB started his Upland journey in December 2021, and in that time, he's been engaged in all things Upland, including now branching out into UGC asset manufacturing and associated utility management. We talked about his Upland journey, of course, as well as some of the plans he's currently working on for how he can further get involved in supporting the Upland community and especially new players. We also gave our thoughts on some of the contemporary Upland Metaverse events, including today's announcement about the first building blueprints coming to Upland and a recent article naming Upland's token Sparklet as being one of the 4 major token launches that will drop in 2024. TB125 is such a well-spoken and all-around awesome bloke, and I've missed chatting to him regularly when he was the Metaventure segment co-host on the old format of the UDU Podcast. I hope you enjoy our chat as much as I did. If, like TB125, you're willing to roll the dice and take a chance in Web3, then you might also find yourself inspiring the community in the Metaverse and beyond.
Warning, the information and opinions within are solely the views of the individuals involved, contains content not suitable for anyone.
Thank you very much for listening to or watching the latest episode of the Metaverse and Beyond podcast. This week we are featuring the one and only TB125. How you going, mate? Yes, now I will say from the onset that my internet here in Australia is not the best, and TB's internet over there in the UK is not the best at the moment either, so bear with us if there's some technical difficulties or there's some lag or whatever, or we drop out. Know that we are trying our best.
Fingers crossed.
What's the weather doing? Yes, what's the weather doing at the moment there, mate?
It is unexpectedly sunny and glorious. We've had a modest heat wave by England standards. Everyone's got their shorts and t-shirts and sunburn going on. Don't know if you can see it online.
Very good. Yes, it's cooled down quite considerably here on the flip side. So now I've got you pegged down in my show notes as one of the OG Metaverse networking moguls. What do you think about that tagline?
Oh, I mean, I like it. It sounds fancy. I don't think I can claim to be one of the first into Upland, but I guess it's all relative. But when it comes to trying to actually do the networking and meeting people and sharing info and making friends and all the rest of it, I'd definitely put myself in there.
Yeah, I mean, you were one of the first people back in the old format of the UDU podcast. You were one of the first people that I saw that was running multiple Metaventures with, similar branding and that sort of stuff. So I was like, wow, you can actually run more than one Metaventure. And every week that we got to talking, you had another one and another one.
Yeah, I got very lucky in the early days. When Metaventures were first becoming a thing, a bunch of mine got approved in quick succession, and I'd been doing what I think a lot of people have been doing and just applying for as much as I could. And back then, the requirements were fairly strict on what you had to have, and I was still a pretty new player at the time. So owning 5 cars to get a car showroom was a pretty big deal for me back then. And so I was scrabbling around trying to find all the things I needed. And then for whatever reason, I got a bunch of stuff approved before a lot of the what I would call OG players did. And then I think that sort of gave me that little in to be able to start learning those things and talking about those things, which was a nice introduction to my personal Upland experience.
Yes, absolutely, mate, for sure. We were talking before we got kicked off here that I woke up this morning to several DMs and an interesting sale. There's a few different little bits and pieces of Upland stuff that I'd like to touch on and get your thoughts on before we dive into a bit more about your background and what you're up to these days. So, yes, now I haven't read this at all yet. Like I said, all I know is I got smashed with DM saying, "Hey, I want to buy your Frost Pass. Can you take it off for sale and put it on reserve for me?" And by the time I went to have a look, it was already sold. So what did they sell for? $7, and I sold it for $25. So pretty happy with that one.
Yeah, that's a nice little return on investment. I remember listening to your podcast and you saying, "Oh, I'll get a few extras and hold on to them just in case, see if anyone really wants them." And then every now and again, Upland pops in with a thing like this, which adds some value to a very specific asset, and people jump in and buy them. Like I suspect a lot of people jumped in and did the buying of the assets before stopping to fully read the actual text about the blueprints, because there's probably not that many of them for sale, and so when they do come available, people are going to grab them as quickly as they can. So I'd be fascinated to know whether whoever you bought yours intends to burn it or to try and resell it for even more. But time will tell.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm kind of course, when these situations happen, I kind of kick on myself that I didn't buy more of them at the time, because famously I bought those first ones, and after that I was like, yeah, I'm not going to play with this again. So, but you never know.
Yeah, if I kicked myself for everything I didn't quite get right with my Upland purchasing, I think I'd be in a pretty messy place.
Yes, well, shout out to, I'm just looking at the sale now, shout out to MC Stoned 420. They picked it up. So, pardon me, I'm still not 100% over here too. So, excuse the hocking and weird noises coming from my end. So, what do we got here? Get you a unique luxury tower in Upland burn season passes now. Well, yeah, if you read that, and what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to say, well, crap, I don't have a Frost Pass, or I don't have a Genesis Pass. And you're probably going to, like you've just said, you're probably going to go out and go on the hunt for it before you've read the finer details.
It was very nearly the first thing I did, had it not been 20 minutes after the message came out that I actually saw it, and therefore realized it would already be too late to buy anything that was cheap.
Yes, so it says here, we're thrilled to announce the upcoming launch of our innovative building model Blueprint Legits. Blueprint Legits, hallelujah. This new feature will allow players to design their own building model blueprints and sell them. I know a lot of people that will be very happy about that finally coming to fruition.
Oh, yes.
Unlocking access to exclusive and unique models. This exciting addition will not only enhance the skyline of Upland, but will also contribute to creating distinctive and diverse neighborhoods across the world. There you go. So that's a key point right there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really interesting element of it. And to hark back to Genesis real quick, I think you remember they started selling entire neighborhoods for the first time.
Yes.
For ludicrous money, admittedly, but well, arguably not. You got it, but nevertheless, I think that sort of ties in with this, where Upland's starting to move towards a position where people can, really create a vision for a place that is not just based on map assets or Discord servers, and I think that's actually a really positive move.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I haven't read this at all, so this is the first time I'm seeing that, and my thoughts immediately go to Midtown Terrace. I think I've got like 300 townhouses there. Well, yes, it'd be very cool to have a unique structure. Like if I was to employ somebody to create that blueprint for me, and we could only put that up in Midtown Terrace or something. That would be very interesting. Something I'd be very keen on looking into further.
Yeah, and it will make traveling around the map in Upland more interesting, because there'll be a lot more to see in different places. It'll actually be worth going for a drive, if you like.
Yep. And we've said for the longest time that there's plenty of properties where you can't even put the smallest micro house on it. Well, here you go. Here's the answer to that. We've said there's, I think it was 1 or 2 weeks ago, I was kind of having a whine about in San Francisco. I have some very large properties there, but it doesn't fit the Lillicorp footprint on it for that building. So that kind of potentially takes away that kind of headache as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be interested to see when this all comes about, how much diversity they allow within their rules, but it will be great in any case.
Yeah, that's a good point, isn't it? It's what you envision isn't necessarily what they're going to allow. Yeah, that's duly noted. So it goes on to say, in preparation for this groundbreaking feature, we're giving away our first building blueprints. These special blueprints will enable players to obtain a unique structure kit that can be applied to any owned property of their choice, assuming the property is large enough to fit the structure. Once applied, the structure remains an exclusive building option for that property, ensuring its uniqueness and setting it apart from others. So I wonder if these are going to be tradable. Like if you win one of these blueprints, are you going to be able to sell it?
Well,
does it go on to say that?
There's a little more in there. I don't want to ruin it for you, but yeah, okay. I think probably you can't sell these particular ones.
Interesting. All right. So it says the first blueprint available is the Luxury Tower blueprint, symbolising luxury and prestige in Upland. This exclusive model is perfect for players who want to elevate their properties to new heights of sophistication. This model will be available in all neighbourhoods except for design-themed ones such as Bermuda. Yeah, this is a much cooler looking apartment building, basically. So yeah, it's good to see. And like I said, it's just going to diversify the whole map, which it's severely lacking in Upland at the moment, you would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
So no, that looks cool. To get your hands on these coveted blueprints, players need to burn one of each of the 3 season passes, Frost, Blossom, and Genesis, between Friday, June 28th and Friday, the 5th of July. So that explains why I got so many DMs.
Yeah.
So burning a complete set of these passes will award you with a model blueprint. The more sets you burn, the more blueprints you'll earn. Okay, so it's good to see that this time around it isn't a burn your 3 bloody things for a chance to go in the running at something. This is, if you burn the 3, you're guaranteeing yourself.
Which is nice.
Yeah, so that's interesting. That Frost Pass that I had sold for $25, and considering the amount of DMs that I got, I would assume that must have been pretty close to the floor price. So straight out the gate, they're almost valuing this up $7,500, something like that, this building.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because by limiting it to something like these passes, which I imagine not a huge number of players have bought extras of because they cost USD.
Yeah.
And they were, I forgot what the price is on. Is it $4.99?
I think it was $6.99, wasn't it? $7 USD.
You're right.
Yeah.
So even if you've bought them yourself and you own them already, you're still looking at just over $20 for access to one of these. And it's currently, and I realize that this is probably part of a bigger plan to test their blueprint feature rather than extend it past this right now, but you're paying $20 for one blueprint to be able to build one building on one specific property. So that property now has a $20 building on it that you can do. You can't change that essentially. I don't think you can test that blueprint from one place to another. So for people who are spending $25 a time, you're spending, for argument's sake, $75 to put a unique-ish structure on your property, and it's interesting because it's new. I'll be interested to know whether down the line people who have done that get any added benefit on utility or such like to add to the to what they've spent on enabling it to happen.
Yeah, it's one of those things you never know, eh? So I think it's very clever, the timing on this as well. Just looking, if you're listening on the Spotify, we're looking at the store. So the Genesis season passes are still available, unlimited quantity, $6.99. So yeah, if they had have announced this at the start of the Genesis season pass sale, then of course people would have bought extras. But whether it was by design or just happened to luck out, I think they recently, you had your last opportunity to buy the Genesis season pass to burn it to get the cosmetic rewards. Well, now that the tail on that sale has dropped off, well, here's another reason for them to sell a whole bunch more. So pretty smart from a business perspective.
That is smart. And in some ways, I prefer that kind of smart than just a straight in your face, here's a thing, buy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it shows a bit more thought behind it, perhaps. Very good. All right. So, yeah, the more sets you burn, the more blueprints you'll earn. That's very cool. The Luxury Tower model will be exclusively available only through these blueprints. So, yeah, people will probably be going to get the blueprint, put up the building. If you can't sell the blueprint itself, well, then you're going to attempt to flip the building on the back end. Burn requirement, 1 Frost, 1 Blossom, 1 Genesis, 1 model blueprint for every set. Yep. So what this also does too is puts in the back of people's minds that for future season passes, then there may be some extra utility there. So people that were a bit on the fence where I'm going to buy these, I'm not going to buy these, well, this will probably push them over to the edge of, well, I better buy these just in case sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the interesting thing now, and I enjoy listening to your chats with Buhleman on these things, but is do I buy the pass and then burn it to get the stuff, or do I just buy the pass and keep it?
Yes. I don't think it's enough to get me over the edge where I'm going to start buying them again, but maybe. I'm not
Yeah, I
sure on
suppose
that
the
one.
thing is now everybody will be doing the same thing in the hope that a similar thing happens. So that like many of these situations that Upland surprises us with, if you made the right choice, you win, but there's not likely to be a second opportunity to pull off the same move.
Yeah, good point. Good point indeed. All right, so how to use the blueprint. Initially, this process will be handed manually. Oh, what could possibly go wrong with the interns? But it will eventually become an automated in-game feature. For now, we will manually assign the blueprints to your chosen property. So it'll be a bit like the Speedway structure Metaventure situation. Each blueprint allows the owner to build the model on one property. To use the blueprint, you have to burn the blueprint, submit the details of the property where you want to build it using a link. So it'd be a bloody Google form or something. Each blueprint will allow for one building. Yeah, that makes sense. That whole manual process. I guess this gets back to Buellerman's point that he always makes too, and I think it might be Elslack mentions it as well. Like, it's all well and good to put these features out when they're the barest minimum possibly, but my gosh, they're making a hell of a lot of work for themselves there to do that all manually.
Yeah, I'd like to think that they've calculated the maximum number of these that are likely to come in and figured that it maybe isn't that many. Like, I don't know how many players purchased more than one of these passes, and therefore I don't know how many of these blueprints are actually available to get. It might only be in the hundreds for all we know.
Yep.
Maybe even less.
Yeah, absolutely could be. Yeah, it could be. So what's the general consensus? What have we got? Warlocks NFTs have said, how do we find unburned previous seasons? You have to go and search in the Upland themselves. I couldn't even remember what Metaventure are these listed in. Is it the can sell any of the legits one?
To be honest, I've not looked, but I would imagine it's in the the variety Metaventure that they would go.
Variety ones. Deadful Discord has said burn past passes. Well, that is disappointing. Not really. I mean, I think it's good. Typo, okay, and nice. Well, this is super exciting. Have we confused June with July? There was a few of those before, and yeah, and some spam. All right. So all in all, I think it's a pretty positive addition. I like it.
Yeah, I think it's something a little different. I'm hoping that it, as I mentioned before, that it's them finding a relatively easy way to test out a new mechanic, whilst also bringing it into the game rather than trying to do it all behind the scenes. So I think it's probably the precursor to something better.
Absolutely. Yeah, it shows the functionality there at least. And I know, as I said at the onset when we got talking, there's a bunch of people in the UGC community. Shout out to Lilyfield as one of them, and probably Dejark, and of course, Antique Master and D-Tech and everybody else that's probably chomping at the bit to get involved in this situation from the UGC side.
Yeah, I'm sure.
All right. Pardon me. Now, that wasn't the only kind of newsy bit of information that was kicking around. I did see this headline popped up on X a couple of days ago, but I didn't really take any notice of it because I kind of search the news for one of the other podcasts that I do all the time. And I always get these, top 5 cryptos to watch out for, top 4 metaverse coins to watch out for. And it's always some bloody, it seems like they're just companies that have paid to be in the list. So when I saw this headline, 4 major token launches that will drop in 2024, I didn't think much of it. I just clicked straight past. But it wasn't until Swali gave me the heads up that Upland was actually mentioned in this one. So have you got wind of this one yourself yet?
No, this is the first one to me. I'm impressed by the use of the word ossified. That's very fancy.
Ossified, oh God. So yes, it says 4 major token launches that will drop in 2024, and this is on coingape.com. Now, I will say, when I loaded up this page, it was super spammy, super addy, pop-up blocks galore. So take that for what it's worth. So it says here, Planner Finance is one. Never heard of that one. Of course, most importantly to us, it says Upland. It says Upland is about a well-established as Web3 games go, having taken the long route to tokenization. Yep. This has entailed building a loyal, passionate player base, which now constitutes 30,000 daily active users and 3 million registered players. What's your take on that number? I absolutely hate that number.
I think it's a statistic that maybe is relevant if you're trying to sell a business, but if you're trying to like justify a business's actual viability, it's largely pointless because bots can register for Upland. Like anyone can register for Upland. The daily active user number, as I think you've alluded to many times in the past, is a way more relevant statistic.
Yeah, I just hate that number because 2.7 million of those 3 million registered players don't own a single NFT. So what are they there for? Other than to fluff the numbers. It's
another 2 million of them are probably the same person.
Yeah, probably. Or I guess that also may include visit accounts that have expired, or I don't know how they come up with that number, but it's definitely not the reality.
I suppose if you're selling it or trying to encourage the layman into it, then it's not a terrible thing to look at as a first glance and be like, oh, 3 million people are doing this. Maybe I should give it a look. So I can see, from a marketing perspective why it's in there, but to us, I don't think it has much deep meaning.
No, well, I'd be far more impressed if they said, 300,000 NFT owners, and of those, 30,000 of them are daily active users. That number would be far more significant to me than this one. But that's only because I know the background of what that number actually means, I suppose.
True. And you're definitely the man to go to when it comes to monitoring those stats.
Well, I thought you were going to say for whining about fake numbers, so
I mean, that too.
Yes, bit of both. So it goes on to say the game, which launched on EOS and has been backed by the EOS Network Ventures, is now preparing to release a token on Ethereum, and the launch has been preceded by a share and build campaign. Upland will reward existing players with providing incentives for new arrivals to capture the upside when its token drops. I think that's alluding to the airdrop situation. The real estate strategy game, which was inspired by Monopoly, mentions Sparklet. Following the Ethereum token launch, players will be able to convert the in-game currency into the new token, unlocking the next phase in Upland's evolution. Yeah, so I think this is good. This is what we've been saying for the longest time. We need Upland's name in the mix with these sort of articles, and hopefully this is just the very bleeding edge of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think now they've done the transition to Sparklet, I think we'll hopefully see more of this, because I feel like they were probably holding back on dragging people into stuff when the names didn't match, and it would be really confusing. So now they've really not got any reason to hold back on that.
Yeah, and I think there was already a crypto called Spark. So yeah, it makes sense that they mixed it up a bit.
That's right.
Absolutely. All right. But that's not all that's kind of in the news that's relative to us. I also have pulled up this article. This is from the recent partner of Uplands, of course, the Sandbox. This one came out just a couple of days ago, I think. 26th of June. Yeah. So it says the Sandbox 1.5 million Sand Builders Challenge 2 now live. So we do know on that original announcement where the partnership the official partnership between them, it was announced that there was going to be some kind of builders challenge between the two. So here we go. Here's some specific information on that. So what did you think, first of all, about that partnership, being officially announced? I was super positive about it when it dropped.
Yeah, I mean, it can only be a positive thing. I would argue that Upland stands to do better out of it than Sandbox does in the short term, just through the association with the name. Because when you say Sandbox, most people who have an interest in the metaverse know what that is. Whereas many still don't know what Upland is. And so when you associate the two, it immediately adds value to the Upland brand. My take on it I was lucky enough to be able to chat to the Sandbox guys who at Genesis Week and ask a few more probing questions off the record. And the main thing that I took away from it was that I don't think there's any major specific collaborations planned at this point in time, but there is the intention to basically have a portal between the two where Upland will have space in the sandbox and vice versa. And that alone, I think, is going to be a positive start.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. So what does it say here? The Sandbox has kicked off the second iteration of its Builders Challenge, running from 24th of June to 1st of September. The Builders Challenge 2 campaign is backed by 1.5 million sand tokens worth $500,000. In order to participate, you need to own a land NFT on which to publish an innovative game. Furthermore, you need to interact with the community and collaborate with other creators in addition to completing KYC. That all seems pretty standard. The rewards, first to third place, 20,000 sand. Now, I just did the calculation at current market rates. That's worth about $6,800 for first place. So that's a pretty hefty prize.
Yeah, it's not to be sniffed at.
Now, it does mention Upland down here. It kind of refers back to that article. Now, what did I had a quick look at this before, and there was something that stuck out. Where was it? Here. So more information on this. That's going to be interesting. So it says here, initially, the Sandbox will drop its neighborhood's virtual properties in Upland to its land owners. So that's interesting. It's not going to be a case of the Sandbox people that qualify for this kind of Upland cross collaborative. It's not going to be, well, it appears like it's not going to be like, here's their little neighborhood. Okay, guys, come on over. Guys and girls, come on over here and mint away and get your property. They're going to, now that we know that that functionality is there to drop specific properties, that's how they're going to get those. I guess that's a little disappointing. It'd be nice to see them more actively involved.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I was trying to allude to with my previous comment, is that I think that they've sort of agreed that there's a way they can create routes into each other's metaverses through this, but I don't think there's anything more in depth planned at the moment. Yeah, I think this is basically Dirk and his mate that he knows from previous agreeing to try and help each other out when you look at it on a grand scale.
Yeah, it could be. But of course, like if you're a Sandbox Metaverse player and then you get airdropped one of these Upland properties and you think, well, what is this? It will hopefully get you to that next stage where you'll go and check it out. And of course, if they want to sell it, I would assume, unless there's going to be functionality within the Sandbox portal, that they're going to have to come through and sell it on the Upland side of things. So.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what they're aiming to try and do, is sort of pull people through into both ecosystems. Yep. But I would imagine, I've not got onto Sandbox other than very briefly checking it out when I'd first Googled Metaverse and ended up here. But I imagine it's more expensive to get involved in that than it is in Upland.
Yes, as a landowner, absolutely. Yep.
I do wonder whether there might be a good opportunity for Upland players to grab props from people from Sandbox who are looking to get rid of them as quickly as they've got them, and you know, get a space in a new community that could be quite a fun bit to be a part of. That's definitely one to look out for. Not to give you all the plans, but
yeah, no, I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that, because it would be cool, as you said. It goes on to say the Upland community will have a chance to win sand and NFTs by completing tasks in the Sandbox. So, yeah, a bit more of that cross-collaborative stuff there. All right, and what's, just for shits and giggles, what is the sand token? What's it actually doing? What's it looking like? Most of the cryptographs follow a very similar kind of pattern. I know I keep saying we're not allowed to talk about the Sparklet prices. What's your general take on where we're going to come out the box with Sparklet?
So if I were to draw a graph for Sparklet pricing, it probably wouldn't look that dissimilar to the one that's in front of you, in the sense that I think what will happen is players who have a lot of it will dump a bunch onto the market just to see what happens. And initially, some people will lap it up. And then unless it has a lot more utility by the time it's launched, it will probably then fade off. And I don't think, I do think the one good thing that's going for Sparklet is that there's an ever increasing number of uses for it. And
yes.
whilst there is still a long way to go, like my logic in my mind says that I'm going to hang on to most of mine because, well, frankly, I'm one of those people that just forked out the cash and bought a bunch. And so my 1,000 Sparklet is worth $460 to me. And so I'm not buying it for anything less. And that I think will be the interesting thing to see whether it settles around that mark, which is what I imagine will happen, because I can't see many people who have paid for it selling it for less. And I don't think there's a whole bunch of it kicking around, as long as you don't get players who have vast amounts of it, like Abdullah and such, like suddenly dropping, 500 of it onto the market. But my guess is that it'll settle around, around like what's 400 $460 odd for 1,000, whatever that math is, because my brain's not working today.
It's going to be fascinating, that interplay between, like, at present, it's the holders of the token are people who are, you would have to say 90% or more of them are actively using them, and it has been a use case for a couple of years now. That's going to be a little bit different to the sandbox, where, they came out the gate probably after their pre-ICO and their ICO. They came out the gate at 7 cents, and then a couple of years of development, and then, of course, with the big crypto spikes, it's pumped up again. So, I would expect that we're going to come out the gate. I got no idea on pricing, but I think we'll see a rise at first as people start playing around, unless it goes above that 460 equivalent mark. I think we'll go up for a while, and then it's just going to be fascinating, that interplay between the hodlers from Upland who are active community members who hold the token, are using the token, and then just the rampant speculators that are out there in the wider crypto market, how they're going to play with the whole thing as well.
Yeah. And something that was mentioned very much in passing at Genesis Week, but I think is actually important, was the, I think it was Idan mentioned that, they can kind of control the market to a degree by adding or removing utility.
They could try.
He didn't say it quite like that, but the impression I got was that they believe they've either created or will be able to create enough use case for the token to enable it to maintain a value. And I think what we'll see with this, and personal opinion only, of course, is that there won't be that much sort of a free market on it, because a lot of it will still be held in the game. And so the amount of it that's actually available to trade relative to the amount of it that's issued will be quite small. And I wonder if that will actually be beneficial in a way, because the entire pile of Sparklet is not there being traded all the time, nor can it easily be done in a matter of seconds. There will be less, I'm hoping there will be a little bit sort of less rapid movement in whichever direction it goes. But I'm no pro on this, just my guesstimations.
I guess a lot's going to come down to what type of exchange and what exchange it ends up landing on. But, if it's decentralized exchange versus a centralized exchange, yes, Upland can say that they can control the market a little bit, but if this is a centralized exchange and you're talking about they have to pass on a certain amount to set the market, get the liquidity there. There's people outside of the space that don't give a toss whatsoever about the utility. They're just gonna do what they do with the speculative side of things. And some of those people, their potential to play with things is like nothing that we've seen in Upland, even at the Abdullah status.
Oh, 100%. And that's why I think, when I look at it from my perspective, I've got about 25-ish Spark, like it was 25,000 Sparklet as it is now. I feel like I might put 2 or 3 of that onto the market as a thing, because if it does go massive, it's not going to stay there. We all know how it's basically. I look at it kind of like a penny stock. There's massive risk involved, and so the stuff that you've got in the game is safe, even if it's not. The value is still the same as the stuff that's on the market, but ultimately it's still providing you with some value in itself because you're doing stuff with it. And I think that's where this is a little bit better in my mind than your average sort of crypto stock, is that when it's being staked, you're actually still in a position to make US dollars from it.
Yes. So fascinating all around, I think.
Yeah.
All right. One last thing to touch on was we did have now the bloody pop-ups when I woke up this morning. Pop-ups. Well, here's another pop-up. A Flash Weekend Challenge starts now from now until Monday, July 1st at stupid AM. Players can gain entries to win one of 10 Freedom Flyer carts, earn one entry by collecting earnings. Now, I don't think we've ever seen that before, have we?
No,
collect your earnings to... No. So I guess that's trying to help boost the daily active user stats. Every time you collect your earnings, rather than leaving it for 24 hours, well, now you're going to want to collect it every 3 hours.
I like that you're on my card, by the way.
Yes, I was getting that ready. Yep. And earn 5 entries for every property minted. Track your entries in the leaderboard. Links below. Bloody leaderboards. Come on, Upland. We need to get this in-game. But any event, here it is, the Flash Challenge leaderboard. Just kicking off, of course. This isn't updated live, which is one of the frustrations that everybody has. I know Swally was particularly not very happy with the structure ornaments leaderboard when he was trying to do some stuff there. Because there's a lag, you don't really know where you sit until right at the end. Just for shits and giggles, I'll see where I'm at. No data. So there you go. Mine's not even updated because I woke up, what was that, about 3 hours ago and collected my earnings, and that hasn't even popped up yet. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was playing around with this system for an unrelated business idea that I have, and the fastest it can update is every 15 minutes. But I think because it's pulling through so much data for someone like Upland, they probably are in the getting charged for it level if they do it that regularly. So they're probably only doing it every hour or whatever.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Well, that's all of the contemporary Upland newsy sort of stuff I wanted to focus on. Is there anything else on your radar?
Well, I've got a few plans coming forward. Like my Upland game evolves every week, really. But I was fortunate enough to get some map assets approved recently, which was a big win because that system has been a pain for a long time. I can't claim to be the sole designer of them. I come up with the ideas and then I make an attempt, and then it's usually a disaster, and then I give somebody else a bit of money to sort it out for me. But it is somebody else in the Upland world, so at least that money's staying in house. But yeah, I had a bunch of racetrack barriers approved recently, which has been quite lucrative actually. I think I had a bit of a moment where I thought there's a lot of map assets out there. And there's a lot of people who have the ability to build a lot more of them. Probably I would guesstimate only 2 or 3% of what's been approved is actually being built right now because people have many more they can build, but they don't have the factories or the spark to do it. So I thought I just want to create something that will be fun for people to buy and use right now. So I created these racetrack barriers, which have gone down pretty well, especially with a few players who are just buying them to try and basically create entire racetracks with the barriers on them. There's one player, Akapropi, I'm not sure if I pronounced their username correctly, but they've got a racetrack in Vegas and they've been relentlessly buying them. And they've got the new Matilda Studios building on their track as well. So it looks really cool driving around there with the new assets up. So that's been a fun little venture. And I'm, at 20 spark hours, I'm able to produce about 1 an hour, which is not massive, but when I'm able to sell 10 or 15 of them a day, it's quite a healthy addition to my daily UPX income, which is a nice one to have. So that's been great. And then also on off the back of Genesis Week, I met a whole bunch of new players there, which it was important for me because when I first went to Genesis Week, it was about 2 days after I joined Upland, and I just happened to be living.
Really? Wow.
living in Vegas at the time. So I was like, oh, it's right down the road. I'll go to this. Why not? And I was like, what on earth is this? And then I was welcomed with open arms and shown the way. And I realized that even with a lot of help and stuff that people have out there from some of the bigger players and some of the sites online, that it's actually surprisingly difficult still to just like really understand how this game works and how to play it in a way that's good for you. And so I spoke to a bunch of newer people at Genesis Week, and what I'm going to do is just start a little thing where just whenever I can, because I'm not great with timings and I have a lot of other stuff going on in my life, is I just jump on YouTube, do YouTube live of just me playing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to play specifically in the cities that are designated for new users.
Nice.
So I'll go to Slough or one of the others, and I will play there live. And anyone who's a new user can just jump on and ask questions, and I'll try and answer their questions live about how to do little bits and bobs. But then, as part of that, if people join in, I'll go and visit their properties as part of that play, and maybe do a few giveaways so that people who are new to the game can get a little bit of a leg up into just understanding how the whole process works. Because I think there's lots of podcasts and things out there, and I don't have the ability to commit to doing things on a frequent basis. But I feel like when you do stuff like YouTube Lives, they'll just pop up, and I can go on my Discord and say, jump on in 15 minutes, and if you want to do some stuff, do some stuff. And I'm hoping that some of the more experienced players that I've met will jump in, and if they're around as well, and everyone can just get involved and do a bit of a show and tell, help out for newbies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I never got into short form content with that kind of tutorial stuff is because it seems to get outdated so quickly. So think about all the people that have put out stuff about Spark. Well, now Spark isn't a thing. Now it's Sparklet. So even those little kind of confusing things. So yes, having a live situation where you can just jump on whenever, I think that's brilliant. So make sure once you get that set up and running, make sure you let me know the details, and I'll share that around as best we can and give it a bit of a spotlight to help get a bit more people involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And just be something a little bit fun and keeps me involved in the community, because I sadly can't do as many of your podcasts as I used to just because of the timings. And so that'll enable me to keep engaging with people, which is always fun to do.
All right, we've skipped ahead a bit there. I'd like to go back to the early days, and we'll eventually get back to where we're at, where we were just discussing with what you've got going on now. But you mentioned that just 2 days in, you jumped on to Genesis Week and that. So you've been to all 3 Genesis Weeks now?
I have, yeah. This
awesome.
Getting to this year's was a struggle. I literally went over for basically the day.
Gosh. All right. So maybe you could talk about your journey in, like for people out there who haven't seen you around the place before. How did you find Upland? Why were you looking? You said you were searching for Metaverse stuff and you landed in the sandbox. That whole journey in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess slightly ironically, the thing that got me looking at the metaverse was when there was a whole bunch of new stuff about people losing vast amounts of money on NFTs crashing and the metaverse crashing and all the rest of it. But it also got me thinking about how, I'm not the youngest anymore. And I look at people who are 30 years my senior, and they're like, what is this thing you talk about? I have no idea about this. And I realized that if I don't learn about it, that's just going to be me in 30 years time. And so I just sort of thought now's actually the time to try and figure it out. Honestly, that was what really got me thinking about it. And I literally typed in what is the metaverse into Google, and then started perusing through the myriad of articles and things in there, and different sites coming up. And it was very clear to me that if you don't know what the metaverse is, there's a lot of people out there who are willing to take your money for nothing. So I really started looking a lot. I'm not going to name any specific other metaverse things, but I looked at some of the bigger ones which pop up because they were the ones that actually made the news, and realized very quickly that I just couldn't afford to get involved in those. Yeah, and then started going through some others where they just were taking random pictures of the world and selling blocks on them, basically, and everything in between. And eventually I came across the Upland one and started. I just thought, oh, this sounds a little bit more interesting. So I did a little more of a deep dive into it, found a few videos on YouTube and stuff. And it wasn't a new game at that point, but it was still relatively in its infancy, and so information was a little sparse. But I thought, you know what, I'll have a go at this one. So I signed up, used the start of my email address to sign up, hence my terrible username, because I had no idea that this would be my username for the rest of eternity in the metaverse. So I've just learned to embrace that now. I bought my first couple of properties for free using the epics that they gave me back then, and then threw a few dollars at it as well to sort of progress. And I think I maybe spent $100 on stuff just to sort of get me started. I didn't do much before the convention because I was still trying to figure out what it was. So I just bought a couple of properties in Los Angeles, and that was it, I think it was. And then I got an email came through saying, oh, the Upland convention is in Vegas in 2 or 3 days or whatever it was. And I was like, oh, that's odd. Oh, it's at the Sahara Hotel. I can literally walk to that. Why wouldn't I go? So I paid my $100 and went along to the convention, and kind of got a baptism of fire, if you like, trying to even just trying to meet people and understand what this whole thing was, because I think it was strange to people at the convention that someone would be there not understanding what they were there for.
Well, yeah, fair enough.
Which I can fully understand in hindsight. But now, I met some great people there, and it was ideal because now I was able to put some faces to names before I even really started playing the game. I made a few mistakes along the way, particularly with
everybody
spending USD on stuff that I could have got for way better deals if I'd known how to play properly. Like buying Upex from the store rather than buying properties that were below mint and that kind of thing. And I also out heavy in Vegas, because when I was in Vegas, I was new and they were doing the Vegas launch, and I wanted all the things that I knew that I recognized, and I wanted to buy my properties there that I knew about. So I spent out pretty heavy in my mind. It's all relative.
Yes. No, I don't think you've done too bad. If you're listening on the Spotify, we're looking at TB's progress chart. There's definitely no major spikes between your property's net worth and your mint net worth, except here with that last year, middle of last year. Do you know what that was?
I had a bit of a moment. It doesn't really show on this graph actually, but I had a bit of a moment where I sort of dumped a bunch of props for USD, and I did it mainly because I wanted to buy Spark. And that I went through a Spark buying phase.
So that's there. Yeah.
But prior to that, I started going in a little heavier on the. I think this was the point where I realized that the game might actually have some longevity to it and not just be a fad. And so I thought, I'll just chuck a little bit in each month and buy some more things. Unfortunately, through a lot of that phase that you see with the line there, I still didn't realize that UPX land existed, for example. And so I was buying things for a lot more than I needed to. Which sort of accounts for some of those differences. And then I also that difference in net worth and such, like it does vary a lot, because I bought a bunch of properties, for example, at city releases.
And another thing that I haven't considered too is you've done, like we mentioned, your whole metaverse mogul aspect. You've done a lot of buying and selling with assets like cars and whatnot as well. So that probably factors in there as well.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how all this takes in, but I went in pretty heavy on the cars, in case you couldn't tell from that screen view you had in my showroom.
We'll go back to that.
That's a thing that's still waiting to come of age, I would say.
Yeah, well, I'm one of the people that was one of your best shoppers there for a while. I went gangbusters and bought up a whole bunch of the vans there. When was that? That's going to be, what, 18 months ago or something?
Yeah, time flies, right?
Yeah. So, no, you've definitely done a lot there. What do you got going on at the moment?
I've actually not got a whole lot of sales, to be honest. I don't really have any intention of selling stuff cheap.
Well, this goes back to the earlier point we were saying about the season passes. Like, all this is going to take is for Upland to finally make an announcement about transportation mechanics, whether it be passengers for the vans or, the cargo vans for transport. And then you're going to get people that are going to mop up the floor. So you're kind of doing what I did with my pass, is just putting it out there. If it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah, and when you look at the vehicles, I started buying them when they were quite expensive, and I've just been progressively buying more as they've got cheaper and cheaper. Sort of almost just sort of averaging out. And then I've got to a point where I've basically got a showroom full of cars now, and very few of them are for sale because I want to hold them in the hope that there will be some additional value to them. Obviously, I picked up a few of the specials.
Yeah, you got some good ones.
Yeah, well, I got that the very first Stock Car Pro that was given away at Genesis Week year 2. I didn't win it, but I managed to buy it off the guy who did for a price that
first mint
was reasonable. So this was the very first Stock Car Pro to be introduced into Upland. So I've been sitting on this one for a while. I've actually been renting it out to people, believe it or not, because there's been a few people wanting to use them for racing in some of the events that Upland does, because it has a tendency to win. And I haven't had time to do anything outside of the Upland Racing League at the moment with my stuff. So yeah, I've been doing a few loaners.
Nice.
But mostly I'm trying to collect the sort of the mid-range things, because I really, my game now is more geared around what I would call like your average player, so newer people coming in who maybe have $100 to spend on getting into the game, more so than people who have vast sums. But yeah, I managed to pick up a one of these the trucks in the semi trucks in the. I bravely went for one of Upland's. I bravely went for one of their pay a bunch of money and get a mystery selection of things.
And worked out first mint.
It did this time. The first time round I did it, it was a disaster, and I feel like I got completely seen off. But I'm a sticker for punishment, so I did it again. When the second time round, it did work out.
Whoa. Well, you stayed in Vegas for a while, so I know that you've got a bit of that gambler in your blood there.
Yeah, it has been known.
Nice. All right, we'll just go and have another look at this. So, yeah, pretty steady progress there, and a couple of big jumps at certain points. I guess this is city releases here, would it be? There's big jump
yeah,
in November.
I can't remember which one that was. That one, you've got the second one. I think the first one was just me deciding I had a bit of money to spend and buying a bunch more stuff.
Okay.
The second one was, do you remember they did an ETH bundle where you could pay a bunch of ETH and get that? So weirdly, despite having got into this game, I'd never dealt in crypto before. Like, I'm a bit of a novice in that world. So I thought, maybe this is the time to dabble with that. So I spent an inordinate amount of time just trying to actually figure out how to buy some ETH and then make it available in Upland, which was no mean feat. But yeah, I did that and bought one of their ETH bundles, and I was very, very lucky and got one of the landmark properties in. I got the in Chicago, the I forget what they call the building, but on the waterfront in Chicago. Not that anything's happened with it. I'm assuming at some point they'll give me something to build on it, but right now it's just sat there empty.
So you are going to hold on to it?
I mean, everything has a price, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how long it takes for Upland to actually provide you with the unique structure to build on top of it. Which one is it in there?
Might be the Grand Ave one, is it? That sounds
Feel like
a bit
feel like it was more expensive than that.
landmarky.
In fact, but no, it's not that one. It's on the water. But anyway, the long and the short of it was they gave me a bunch of UPEX for it, and the UPEX that it actually cost to buy it was significantly less than the amount that they gave me into my account. So I kind of got a bit of a win there. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, if you go right down to the waterfront in Chicago, it's what's it called? Navy Pier. That's what it was called.
Oh, I'm all sideways here, aren't I?
Yeah, that bit that's sticking off the side there.
Yeah,
that's the one. Dock Street. I think that one that you got your cursor right over
this
now.
big one here.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. But they haven't given me anything to put on it yet, and I've no idea how long you have to wait for those things. So,
it's going to be an epic building once it goes up.
Yeah, if I'd be interested to see whether it has any use case.
I'd definitely be holding on to that unless maybe that goes to the point you said early on. You put $100 in, and you've you mentioned that you've purchased Spark and whatnot. I guess the point goes to the whole, is it a game? Is it an investment thing? Are you looking to potentially get back to $0 in and playing with house money? Like a sale of something like this could potentially be that trigger point, or are you happy to just hodl along and see where it ends up?
I'd say I'm trying to sort of do a gentle downward curve to meet that 0 point, but yeah, I still occasionally put dollars in. I mean, realistically, I've probably put, I don't know, maybe 10,000 in, something like that over that amount of time. I can't claim to be someone who's put in $100 and is suddenly an executive. It doesn't really work that way for most people, and I don't have the time to treasure hunt relentlessly. So this was my way of doing it. But I think I'm at a place now where my daily income is enough that I can, if I want to, start cashing bits out. The problem is, because the value of properties has dropped so much now, a daily income of 20,000 UPEX, which is about what I get, is worth $5. Whereas a year ago that was $10, and 2 years ago that was worth $15, or thereabouts. And so again, it comes down to the how much of your earnings do you leave in and how much do you cash out? Because when it's left in, it's compound. And so it's actually quite healthy at this point. So there's just a line to be found there, I think, and I'm toying towards leaving mine in at the moment for the most part.
Yeah, that was what was kind of funny about me when I made my big move to drop from nearly 7,000 properties to now under 700. There was Ben's cashing out, blah blah blah, this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, well, go and have a look at my data, mate. The property number is going down, but my net worth is hardly moving at all. And in that sale period, I increased my earnings. I've never been at 2.1 million UPEX per month. That was after I'd done all the sales. So it is possible to do it. But now, as you said, the markets has switched considerably. So that's something I'm taking.
And the other side of it is, for me, I tend to sell stuff and then just leave the US dollars sat in my Upland account. In case something crops up that's a great deal, because if I've got $200 or $300 sat in there and somebody's desperate to sell something because they need the US dollars, then one, I can help them out, but two, I can usually get myself something at a bargain. And so it's worth having that sat there. Whereas if I have to go and take it out of my bank, it just somehow feels a lot worse. If it's never made it as far as my bank in the first place, it's still play money in my head.
Yeah, well, I guess you must be pretty good at avoiding the old FOMO dragon then, because one of the reasons I zoink USD out of my account as soon as I get it almost is so I don't FOMO into these bloody sales and whatnot.
I'm better at it now than I used to be. That I used to fully go in for it, but I've got burned by it enough times that I found that almost everything now, when there's a FOMO element, 90% of the time, you wait a week and you can get the same thing for less, because people who FOMO'd into it are now trying to bail out of it in just as quick a time.
Yes, absolutely. So that's how you got involved. Well, maybe I could ask too. Now I do know I've got up here as well your anthology puzzles situation. Did you want to speak about your in real life situation at all before we go back into your journey with Upland?
Yeah, so my my in real life business that I'm focused on at the moment is a jigsaw puzzle making company, and we basically make wooden jigsaw puzzles. So the thing that's unique about them is the real art prints. So we professionally art print them and then mount the prints onto some 6 millimeter thick wood, and then cut them out with a laser cutter into fun different shapes and that kind of thing. We do custom stuff, which has been quite popular, and we do a monthly subscription, which is kind of my focal point, because monthly subscriptions are good both for business and for customers, because the customer gets a way cheaper price and I get a consistent income. And so that's where my business is focused. I'm trying to build it up to 300 subscribers, because if I can get 300 subscribers a month, then I can afford to live off it and pay 2 staff full time, which is basically my
Awesome.
The aim. So it's a work in progress, but it's been going pretty well. I did a couple of jigsaws for the Creedmoor Halloween Spooktacular last year, which were quite fun. I'm trying to figure out whether I can do people's Upland block explorers and things like that, or whether there's any licensing that I'd come up against. So because that would be quite a thing to do. What I'd really like to be able to do is for someone to go into my store in Upland and order one of these.
So make it a layer 2 situation. Yeah, that'd be really interesting.
Potentially paid for in UPX rather than in dollars, or however they want to do it. That's where I'd like to get to with it eventually.
Do you do one-off sales as well, or is it all the subscription model?
No, we do one-off sales. So if you go into the general retail section, all of them are available to buy as just an individual jigsaw.
Cool.
The key behind the subscription thing is you get a lot more for your money than you would if you buy one individually.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. So is that why you were in Las Vegas at the time? Because I remember you used to be here, there, and bloody everywhere.
Yeah, I bounce around a lot. Like I have another job, which I won't go into too much on these means, but it's that was what took me to Las Vegas originally, and then the pandemic hit, and this is what I set up to get me through the pandemic, basically. Nice. And then it sort of grew from there. So I do bounce around a lot, but I'm primarily back in the UK at the moment. So that's I'm back in my hometown right now.
So that was like the kind of side project, and now you're trying to get that to the point where that's the main project.
Yeah, that's it. I've got a 2-year timeline to turn it into the main project. So that's the aim.
Very good.
Unless I make millions out of Upland first, but I'm going to be.
Yes, we can all dream. Yeah. All right. Now we first got connected back, like as I said previously, in the old format of the UDU podcast, which I used to get up at 3 a.m. for. I put the call out for basically I was looking for different segments. There was what did we have? We had the node segment, there was DAC and with the URL segment, and then you put your hand up to take over the Metaventures segment. Perhaps you could speak about that journey as well.
Yeah, so I just before I did that, I got in. It was just after the World Cup football stuff had happened, soccer, if you're listening in America, I went in really heavy on the World Cup legits, and came not the top but close to the top of the leaderboard on that. I dread to think how much I spent on getting those things that are now largely worthless and being used as throwaways. But but it was quite fun all the same. And so I got my football legit store as a result of that. So it then got me thinking about how all those things were working, and I started applying for all the other Metaventures as well. And I think because I'd been getting them approved in surprisingly good time, made me think I was probably an appropriate person to be starting to delve into that more. So I was able to just pull from the statistics and find out a bit more what was happening with them. I must admit, I haven't been following it in as much detail recently, mainly because my stores seem to hardly sell anything ever, and so I've been focusing much more on the map assets.
Yeah, it is a bit of a drought around there, and part of that we kind of knew that was coming as more people got involved. So, yes. Now, you did have, what did you have back in the day? You had the Legits football, you had the cars, you had it seemed like every week that we're talking to you, you'd open a new shop. And that was kind of the catalyst for me to think, well, hang on a minute, I don't have to just do Samurai Aquatics. Like, up until that point, I didn't have any other Metaventures. So you were actually the inspiration for that, for me to apply for. I got the Midtown Terrors Block Explorer shop and the various Legits and whatnot. So a belated thank you very much for the inspiration to step out of the comfort zone and take a bigger bite of the cherry, so to speak.
Well, it's fair to say I probably owe one or two of my other choices to your podcast as well. So, what goes around. But I think for me, it was, I think I was just applying for everything I could at that point to see what would happen. And what I realized very quickly, because I was lucky enough to get one of the earlier stores, is that the monthly fees to keep it running are actually really, really low. And so it's not, I think when they first marketed them, the idea of having to pay a monthly fee to keep it running was enough to put some people off. I'm not even sure how many I have now. I must have at least, probably 10 different stores and ventures and things going on. And it costs me maybe 5,000 UPIX a month for the whole lot. And so it's not an expensive thing to have.
Yes, I think now I think I might be in the 50. I think I've got 50, but of course most of those are showrooms for Samurai Aquatics. But I think I did the revenue share for D-Tech and More Cheese last night, and the venture dues for the last 3 months, I think it's been since I did the rev share, it was 3,000 UPEX or something. It was just nothing. Yeah.
What's interesting is even when you're having a reasonably successful month, because it's based upon an average of all the stores in the city, if there's a lot of other people who have started them but aren't selling anything, you're kind of benefiting from their lack of sales, which isn't necessarily great for everyone. But I guess, that's part of the marketing and everything else. I think there's a few people who are unlucky in that they've put a lot of time into getting the various Metaventures, but haven't yet to actually have the ability to manufacture things to put in them, or so on and so forth. That will come in, I think, probably short order now. It's I feel like that there's progress in that world.
Yeah, well, one of the things that's drastically needed for that I can see that sticks out is we need a pay all venture dues button. It's like I said, I got 50 of the bloody things. Of course, not all of those trigger an amount, but eventually they will. And you got to sit there, press the button, okay, press the button, okay. Yeah, it's a bit laborious.
Yeah, it's like moving map assets.
Yes, well, maybe that's a good segue over to that now. Now, maybe we can take a closer look at what you've actually got going on and where you set up. So if you wanted to share a screen on your end, take a look at what you've got going on.
Let's see if this will work for me here.
Here we go. Yep.
That's a good start. Let's swing over to Vegas because that's where most of my stuff's at. So I was lucky enough to get a factory approved, and then after what felt like a million-year wait, finally get some assets approved as well. So this is Vegas Iconic Visual Assets, or Viva for short, because I'm very thoughtful like that.
Aren't you clever? Yes.
I was trying to do something a little bit different. But yeah, I basically have two map asset things going on in the room. One is these basketball hoops, and the other is the race thing. So the basketball hoops, I've set up an interesting thing where if you own one, you get put into a spinning wheel draw, And so all of the map assets, mint numbers that have been issued go on the wheel. And then every now and again, I do a spin. And if your number is the one that comes out, you win a prize, which might be UPX or other map assets, that kind of thing.
Cool. How are you tracking? How are you tracking that? Is that just a manual thing? Because I know I've looked into doing similar things before, but when I dive into the logistics of it all, my eyes roll into the back of my head and I back away slowly.
So the way I found that I do it is, firstly, I limit it to one map asset. So it's only this particular asset that I do it with. And then I know how many have been minted. And obviously the ones that are on the lot, I exclude. And then all the rest of them is just purely based on the mint number. So let's say, for argument's sake, I've got 500 in circulation. I know that maybe 50 of those are still sat for sale in my showroom. And I don't take the time to do the specific mints. But what I'll do then is I'll just stick the numbers 1 to 500 on the spinning wheel. And whichever number comes up, I'll go into the map asset search. And because you can search for the assets, I'll just go in here, click on the basketball hoop, and then you can order them by mint number.
Hey.
And then I'll literally just scroll down. So if number 37 came up, I'll just scroll down to number 37, click on it, see who owns it. If it's me, I just respin. And if it's not me, that person gets sent the prize.
And now with the in-game chat functionality, it's much easier to contact people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And when the prize is UPX based, it's easy because you can just send it directly. When the prize is an asset, I'll just reserve it for them. And if they come and get it, they come and get it. And if they don't, they don't. I usually set a time limit for collection of like 2 weeks. And then if they don't come and get it, it goes off market. And they can always just hit me up later and get another one if they need.
Well, that's cool, because I'm setting up to do something similar in Midtown Terrace, not tied to map assets, but tied to being a resident in Midtown Terrace. So,
cool.
That's cool. Thank you for that. That taught me something that I'll play around with further.
Yeah, so that's my way of doing it. It's gone reasonably well. It helps that most of the Upland team came by and bought one as well. And then Idan stood up on the stage and talked about it at Genesis Week, which was great because that solved me a fair few.
Cool.
And then this is the other stuff I've been creating is these race barriers, which are, they serve a purpose for people who have racetracks was the main concept behind it. So there's actually a reason for people to buy them. So they're designed to look like tire walls. And I've got a bunch of different colors available. You can see them in here. So I've got basically 5 different colors. There's like a normal red and white one, and then I went for a Halloweeny one, kind of with the Creedmoor node in mind. See if I can palm a few off on them, and then a bunch of other colors just for fun.
And what are they currently retailing for?
So they retail for 3,500. I also do wholesale, which is half price if you order 10 or more. So people who are doing full tracks and things can get them at a reasonable price. And a big part of this for me was trying to be able to do them at a price that means people can buy decent quantities of them without breaking the bank, but also still making enough that it's worth the time to produce them, use that spark, and go through the pain of moving all of the assets as well.
Well, speaking of that, how have you found that whole process? Because I'm one of the people that have been complaining about that for a very long time.
I know how you feel about it, and I think it's fair to say that those feelings are mutual. It's pretty tedious, isn't it?
So how far away, or is this your showroom here? Is it? Yep.
No, actually, this is not.
Oh, that's the assets there.
This is Aka's racetrack, but it was just a demo of what is done with the walls. And when you actually run a race on the track, they look pretty cool.
Yeah, awesome. He's got a runoff area there and everything. Yeah, that looks really cool.
Yeah, that's it. And I've got showrooms dotted all over the map now. Most of my showrooms don't have a whole bunch of stuff in because I've just been, moving them to places as people need them. So they're more there for logistical purposes than showing for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I've done exactly the same with, I think, like I said, I'm at 40 Samurai Aquatic showrooms or more now. And it's purely, especially for the giveaways that I do and whatnot, I can just say, which city are you in? Nashville? Great. Okay, it's listed. Way you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, this is just a little bit of fun, but I did find, if I can actually figure out where I am, here we go. Buying some other people's map assets to use to do writing with works quite well. Like this kind of thing.
There you go.
Yeah, stands out for quite a long way out. So that's
win prizes.
Yeah, silly little things, but it's surprising what people spot when they're just scrolling the map.
Catches the eye.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's cool. Maybe you could speak a bit more about the process that you went through as a UGC creator. It sounds like you're part of the second wave of that. You said you tried to do a bit of Blender work yourself, but eventually had to employ somebody else. Maybe dive into that aspect as much as you're willing to cover.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very much an ideas person. I'm great at coming up with ideas. When it comes to actually bringing them to reality, not always so much. And so, like everything, I don't like to pay money for things if I can help it. So I try and teach myself. I'd never done 3D design ever in my life. I'm reasonably competent in general at stuff, but I did the old Blender donut. For anyone who hasn't come across that, it's kind of a worldwide sensation Blender tutorial, a way to sort of design your first 3D object. And because you can download Blender for free off the internet, I was like, oh, why not? Let's give this a go. So aside from my computer struggling with it, I just found that it wasn't immediately intuitive for me. So I had to work really hard at it. And then I managed to start creating some things, but where I struggled was when it comes to sort of what they refer to as baking. So kind of taking the thing you've created in there and then making it ready to be imported into the game. And it was a bit beyond what I had the time or inclination to do at the time. So what I ended up doing was basically just creating what I would refer to as draft assets and ideas. Some little more than a series of words and some, half completed 3D objects, and then paying designers to do them. And there's a good channel on Discord for everyone who hasn't come across it, the UDC creators channel, which is part of the Upland server. So it's an official one, and there's always people in there willing to help out. And so that was a really great place to work with. And then I just got those guys to help me out. And I'm sure no one will mind me saying it was about $100 to have the assets made ready for use. But my opinion was that that's a fair price to pay for somebody's time and skills versus what I would hope to be able to make from them in game.
And that's. Yeah, so you stayed within the Upland community. I haven't spoken to anybody yet who's employed external services like the Fiverr or whatever, because I remember way back in the very early days of Samurai Aquatics, I looked into that and it was very cheap to hire somebody to make 3D assets. But we know with Upland, it's not just as simple as, okay, these are the specs, submit it, away you go. There has to be some kind of backwards and forwards communication with, okay, well, this didn't get accepted for this reason. It has to be changed, updated, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I mean, I think now that Upland has created a much better system for testing the assets and things, it's probably more viable to do that now. But nevertheless, I think if you're not familiar with the game, it's still quite a big ask. And so I'll be honest, I did try and employ someone from Fiverr to do my first asset, and it was a disaster. Because I spent all sorts of time going back and forth, and they created a great looking object, but it was just impossible to communicate with them effectively to get it truly ready for use in Upland. So then I ended up taking that, giving it to the Upland players who were supporting me instead, and they took the 99% solution and turned it into the 100% solution. And so in the end, I found it was both more time and cost effective just to spend a little bit extra from the outset and give someone who's already one of the players the opportunity to take the money and use their skills for the right things, I would say.
And how did you come up with your max mint numbers? What was your deciding factors there? Did you get that? Or did we cut it?
Oh, sorry, I lost you briefly there, but you were asking about my max mint numbers.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was mostly just guesswork. So with the with the basketball hoops, I can't even remember what my max mint number is. What was it here? Yeah, 10,000. So I basically just picked a number that seemed like it would be viable to make money from.
Yeah.
But without, sorry, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so that it hopefully speeds my internet connection up a bit.
You're all right.
Yeah, just get enough that it would be viable to make money from, basically, but without getting rejected. But it turns out that there were not really any limits.
Yeah, we've seen some crazy numbers out there, but we have seen some other people who've put their mint numbers really low as well, which adds exclusivity, but then of course it doesn't give you much room to move in the future.
Yeah, and that's one of the interesting challenges with it is I don't know what the what the benefit of having vast numbers of max mint numbers is versus little ones. So like with my race barriers, I went with 20,000 rather than 10,000, mainly because I was going to make them cheaper, and so I wanted to have more available to be able to generate the income. But like you say, I've seen people with huge numbers of things out there, and the thing is, I think it depends whether you're going for rarity as well. Like with my assets, I don't really have a rarity value. I want to be able to give lots of them to lots of people for an affordable price, and so a larger number at a lower price for me was kind of the way I was looking. Now, I don't know whether you consider 20,000 to be large or not. It seems to vary, but for me as well, just the amount of time it took to get my first asset approved, I didn't want to risk running out of ability to build things before the next ones got approved.
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess if you're talking about like a basketball hoop, well, how many of those do you need in your yard? Maybe across your residences and whatnot, maybe you need 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, depending on where you want to set up. But yeah, with race fences, you're going to need up to hundreds almost if you're going to deck out a whole racetrack.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I've probably sold about 200 since Genesis Week of those.
Nice.
They're flying out the gates, which is great.
That's good.
Yeah, mostly at the wholesale price, so I'm not getting rich out of it. But like you say, every little helps, and at least my Spark is doing something useful rather than just sitting there being used for very little.
Yeah, well, I haven't done any manufacturing in my factory for, maybe 6 months. It's all just been because I've got so much stock that I still have to move around. I didn't see that there was any point just keep pumping more out. So I've just been going back and doing some construction work. Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, there's one thing I haven't done much of actually is construction. I've gone in reasonably heavy on buildings for sales purposes, but I haven't done much in the way of building houses and things like that. In the early days, I had a go at building myself a little node in Vegas, but it just never really took off, and I decided that there was only so many things I could do at once.
Yep. Yeah, it takes a fair bit of work, that one. And I'll just take the opportunity to give a bit of a shout out to Ace, who currently, on the flip side of big mint numbers, he's currently got a sale going on at the moment for Ace Mythical Pegasus. That's kind of a very cool looking bronze, gold statue, I should say. I believe the first mint number is being auctioned off at the moment. And the mint number there, the max mint numbers there is only 100. So obviously this is, on the flip side, this is making things a lot more exclusive. And I'm not 100% sure what he's got going on as far as, utility or whatnot, but this is more of a collector series, as a flip side to, I need to buy 100 speedway fences.
Yeah, that'll look good in front of your Bel Air mansion.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, for sure. Very good. All right, mate. So we've kind of covered what you got going on with your Metaventures. You've mentioned that you're potentially going to set up a YouTube channel. Is there anything else that you've got boiling away? Any brain farts cooking away?
I'm sure there's plenty of them that I haven't thought about yet. But yeah, no, that's kind of the focus of my my stuff really at the moment, is selling my map assets and trying to get a bit more of an in-person following from people, mainly so that when I go to Genesis Week next year, I can get better feedback and try and provide something a bit more useful to the community, rather than just sitting here and occasionally pointing fingers and criticizing things. It's nice to be able to help the new people, because I feel like that will pay off in the long term. I think a lot of the users that we lose in Upland is just because they don't really get it when they first join.
Yes,
I'd like to just give them a place that's easy to go and be like, can you just answer this really stupid question for me? And then I'll end up answering the same stupid questions, not stupid questions, but you know what I mean. The same newbie questions, every time I do the thing, but hopefully it will just be a way to help bring people into the fold a little more easily.
Yeah, I think a large part of that too is, like you mentioned, you made mistakes early on. I made plenty of mistakes early on. I think people will make those mistakes and they think, well, this is pointless. I've stuffed up here. I'm just going to forget about it. But yeah, if they can get that little bit of assistance to get them over that whatever that minor hump might be, it can, get them to the next level, so to speak.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll see how it goes.
All right, mate. Well, thank you very much for the chat today. I will say that TB is going to send me the links to his showrooms and whatnot, so that'll be all in the description. Make sure you send me any social media you've got, whatnot as well. So keep an eye out for what TB's got coming up with the YouTubes and everything else, and make sure you go and check out what he's got for sale in his many Metaventure stores.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on. It's been a pleasure to chat.
No worries, mate. And we got through in the end without too many dramas, considering how we started off.
Nobody knew, right?
Nobody knew, yes. All right, thank you very much, and thanks, everyone. We shall catch you later. If you have an Upland, NFT, or Metaverse product, service, or event to promote, or you're just someone engaged in Web3 who'd like to have a chat, send me, Ben68, a DM on Discord, or drop a YouTube comment to discuss and secure your spot.